The key was still in the apartment, but its owner had vanished as if she'd never existed. On the evening of December 2nd, 2016, 28-year-old Danielle Stislicki left her office in Southfield, Michigan, and was never seen again. No texts, no calls, no security footage, nothing. But what continues to haunt her family to this day is that everything in her apartment was untouched. Her phone, her wallet, her winter coat. A Jeep Renegade parked somewhere no one expected. A statement from a man who once brought her flowers, yet couldn't prove he was innocent. An investigation stretching nearly a decade with pieces of evidence uncovered, only to be dismissed as if the truth was never meant to surface. And worst of all, no body, no crime scene, no goodbye. Just unanswered questions, and a family who wakes up every day clinging to one fragile hope, that today, someone will finally speak. Danielle Stislicki was born and raised in Farmington Hills, a quiet suburb northwest of Detroit. She was the youngest of 4 siblings, the one who brought laughter to family dinners and kept everyone grounded. Friends described Danielle as a great listener, not someone who spoke much, but the first to check in if you went quiet. She worked for a major insurance company in Southfield. Her office sat in a typical administrative building where everyone recognized each other's faces, but no one got too close. Danielle was punctual, usually ate lunch alone, but always greeted the front desk with a faint smile. She loved to draw, loved fantasy novels, and had one unshakable habit. Every Friday night, she'd call her mom, just to say, "I'm okay." She'd had a few relationships over the years, but none that stuck. Some said she kept her distance. Others said Danielle simply knew how to protect herself. And strangely, she never talked much about her job, especially when it came to one man, Floyd Galloway. Galloway was a security guard at the building, a few years older than Danielle, married. One afternoon, for reasons no one could quite explain, he brought her flowers. Danielle told her roommate he seemed kind of off, but didn't seem overly concerned. Still, after that day, she changed her route to the parking lot and started carrying pepper spray. She didn't tell her mom. She didn't report it to police. Instead, she told her best friend just one thing, 3 days before she vanished. "If anything ever happens to me, check my car first." But when police finally found Danielle's Jeep, they uncovered something no one saw coming. December 2nd, 2016 began like any other day. Danielle put on her dark coat, laced up her familiar tall boots, and left her apartment at 8:15 a.m. for work. Outside, the Michigan air was cold, but the sky was clear, no snow. Witnesses later recalled seeing her walk through the lobby, holding a paper coffee cup, glancing down at her phone, smiling. It was the last time anyone saw Danielle Stislicki alive. She worked until around 5 p.m., just as the office was winding down for the weekend. That evening, she was supposed to have dinner with her roommate. But Danielle never showed up. No texts, no calls, no canceled plans. At first, her friends thought she might have been stuck in traffic or caught up with something unexpected. But by 9 p.m., when calls still went unanswered, worry began to set in. Danielle never missed a plan without a heads up, and she never, ever turned off her phone for more than a few hours. Her roommate called Danielle's mother, and within 30 minutes, the entire family was mobilizing, calling everyone they knew, chasing every possible lead. Police were contacted the next morning. They entered Danielle's apartment and found everything exactly as it had been the day before. Her phone, her wallet, her winter coat, her keys, everything except Danielle. Even more disturbing, her Jeep Renegade wasn't parked in its usual spot. Security footage from the lot, which only retained 24 hours of data, had already been overwritten by the time police reviewed it. There was no video of Danielle leaving the building. A missing person alert was issued immediately. Meanwhile, Danielle's family and friends canvassed the streets, knocking on doors, asking anyone if they'd seen her. Days later, her Jeep was found, nearly a mile and a half away, abandoned in a parking lot near another apartment complex. No blood, no signs of a struggle. But something was off. The driver's seat was adjusted much closer to the wheel, as if the last person behind the wheel was shorter than Danielle. In the trunk, police found a dark-colored blanket. A blanket no one in Danielle's life recognized. It was sent for forensic testing. The results, which took over a week to process, shifted the entire direction of the case. One strand of hair, and a trace amount of epithelial cells. They didn't belong to Danielle. That was the moment the name Floyd Galloway appeared in the investigation, a shadow that had always been there, but never spoken aloud. Floyd Galloway had once worked as a security guard in the building where Danielle worked. To most people in the office, he was just the guy in the blue uniform who nodded and kept to himself. But for Danielle, things weren't quite so simple. She'd told her best friend that Galloway was weird, that he had a habit of showing up when she least expected it. One time, he gave her flowers, completely unprompted. Another time, he stopped her in the hallway to ask, "Have you ever thought about just leaving everything behind?" That question, now, sounded like a chilling foreshadow. When detectives first questioned Galloway, he claimed he had finished his shift around 6 p.m. that night and went home. He said his wife could vouch for him. But when police checked the records, they found no trace of him on the work roster that day. In fact, no one saw him after 4 p.m. As for his wife, she wasn't sure what time he got home either. She simply said, "He went out that night, but I didn't ask where." An anonymous witness later came forward. They said they might have seen Danielle walking out of the building that evening with a man in a security uniform, but it was dark. They couldn't be sure who it was. Police checked nearby surveillance footage, but once again, the data had already been erased. Technology had failed them, again. A few days later, detectives searched Danielle's phone and computer. In her browser history, they found something that sent chills down their spines. Searches for how to use pepper spray for self-defense, evidence of workplace harassment, women's rights at work. Her family had no idea. Danielle had never filed a report. Whatever she feared, she kept to herself. Police then placed Galloway under surveillance. They secured a warrant to search his home in Berkeley, Michigan. In the basement, they found something unusual, a removed car floor mat. The same make as those in Danielle's Jeep, freshly washed. Right then and there, suspicion turned into a criminal investigation. But just as forensic analysts prepared to collect the mat for testing, a call came in from the legal division. "We've got a serious problem," because some of the evidence gathered during surveillance may have violated protocol, and it could threaten to unravel everything. The search of Floyd Galloway's home should have been the turning point, but a single procedural misstep nearly brought the entire case crashing down. A forensic technician discovered that key information used to obtain the search warrant, including audio from Galloway's polygraph exam, had been collected improperly. The examiner wasn't law enforcement, nor was he authorized to access privileged information from Galloway's defense. During that test, Galloway showed physiological signs of deception when asked, "Were you with Danielle that night? Did you harm her in any way?" Increased heart rate, sweaty palms, a strained, muffled voice. The examiner believed he was lying, and thinking he was helping, forwarded the entire report to the prosecutor without going through Galloway's attorney. The result? Every piece of evidence linked to that polygraph, including the floor mat, the DNA sample, and even phone records, was now in danger of being tossed out. Galloway's legal team pounced. They filed a motion to have the entire chain of evidence declared tainted. And after a closed hearing, the court agreed. Danielle's family was devastated. Everything they had waited for, DNA confirmation, cell tower pings, surveillance from the Tim Hortons drive-thru, was now off the table. One investigator put it bluntly. "It felt like we were holding the rope, and then it got cut." But one thing remained: Danielle's Fitbit. While not admissible as criminal evidence, the data could still be used as a point of reference. And according to that data, Danielle never left the area near her building between 5 o'clock and 6:30 p.m., which completely contradicted Galloway's original claim that she left alone around 5. And then, from that contradiction, someone new came forward, with a story that reopened the case. With tech evidence falling apart, police went back to basics: people. They re-interviewed everyone: office workers, delivery drivers, part-time staff. And that's when they found him. Troy, a nighttime maintenance worker at the building. Troy had been called in a few times to fix hallway lights and jam security doors, but wasn't listed among the original witnesses because on the night Danielle disappeared, he wasn't scheduled to work. But when police sat him down, Troy said something that made the room go still. "I could be wrong, but I remember seeing Floyd Galloway standing next to a Jeep Renegade in the parking lot sometime after 6, and he wasn't alone." According to Troy, the security guard was speaking with a woman, brown hair, long coat, who could have been Danielle. Troy didn't stop. He was just carrying a ladder to his truck. But he remembered one detail clearly. Floyd saw him and immediately looked away, which didn't make sense, because in his interview, Galloway had said he never left the house after 5:30. If Troy was right, Galloway had just lied, again. Police revisited a portion of Galloway's phone records, the few data points still admissible, and found a short 14-second call at 6:12 p.m., pinged from a tower near the parking lot. The number on the other end, untraceable. No audio. But the timestamp aligned perfectly with the moment Troy claimed to have passed by. When detectives returned to Troy's house to clarify the timeline, he hesitated, then quietly added, "That wasn't the first time I saw Floyd acting strange." He went on to describe an unsettling moment 2 weeks before Danielle vanished. He'd found Floyd alone in the building's basement, the supply area. No lights, no scheduled work. When Troy asked, "What are you doing down here?" Floyd replied, "Just doing a security sweep." But his eyes were blank. Individually, the details were circumstantial. Together, they tore apart Galloway's original alibi. The quiet security guard was now the center of a storm. His timeline fractured. His behavior inconsistent. His story falling apart. And then, police traced one last witness, someone believed to be the last person Danielle spoke to before leaving the office. What they discovered was something no one had ever considered. There had been a prior attack. A woman who survived, and the man she accused was Floyd Galloway. In the summer of 2016, just months before Danielle vanished, another woman went for a run in Hines Park, less than a 30-minute drive from Danielle's home. She was a routine jogger, out early on a Saturday morning, along a quiet stretch of wooded trail and dry creek bed. At around 7:15 a.m., she heard footsteps behind her, assuming it was another runner, until a strong arm suddenly wrapped around her neck from behind. The man dragged her toward the bushes. She fought, scratched, kicked, and by sheer luck, she got away. She never saw his face clearly, but police collected a description: about 5'9", white, short brown hair, black pants, and a strong chemical odor on his clothes. The case was recorded, but there were no suspects, no arrests, and the trail went cold. Not until Danielle went missing did detectives start connecting the threads. In 2017, as the investigation into Danielle's disappearance expanded, detectives asked the Hines Park victim to listen to audio clips from Floyd Galloway's interview. Her reaction was immediate. She trembled and whispered, "I think that's him." Police reconstructed the scene and reviewed Galloway's GPS data from the summer of 2016. What they found stunned them. Galloway's phone had pinged inside Hines Park on the morning of the attack, from 6:50 to 7:35 a.m., matching the victim's timeline exactly. With that, Floyd Galloway was arrested for kidnapping and attempted rape. He later pled guilty and was sentenced to 16 to 35 years in prison. The moment that sentence was read aloud, investigators in the Danielle case felt a chill. If Floyd had attacked one woman, what really happened that December night with Danielle? In a brief press conference after the verdict, Danielle's family said just one line: "Justice is beginning to be seen, but it's not done yet." But when prosecutors tried to connect the dots between that assault and Danielle's case, they hit a wall, because no one knew where Danielle's body was. And without a body, there was no homicide charge. Spring 2019, over 2 years after Danielle vanished. Floyd Galloway was sitting in Jackson Correctional Facility, serving time for the Hines Park assault. He never spoke about Danielle, never confessed, never showed a flicker of remorse. Just the same cold stare in every interview. Detectives, now working without key evidence due to legal setbacks, focused on indirect data, work logs, driving patterns, overlap in Danielle's and Floyd's cell phone pings. That's when they found something: a small forested area near Galloway's old apartment, the same place where his phone had gone dark for over 20 minutes on the night Danielle disappeared. Search teams brought in cadaver dogs. They didn't find a body, but they did find something buried deep in the soft earth: a necklace with the letter D engraved on the charm. Danielle's family confirmed it was hers, a birthday gift from her mother when she turned 25, something she wore every day. That necklace, combined with GPS records, the assault pattern, and Danielle's last known movements, finally gave prosecutors enough to take a risk. They charged Floyd Galloway with first-degree murder. It was a bold move, because to that point, there was still no body. Michigan law allows a murder charge without a corpse, but only if the evidence is so compelling, so convincing, that it leaves no reasonable doubt. And in this case, most of the strongest evidence had already been tossed. In the 2021 preliminary hearing, Galloway's attorney fired back. My client is already serving time for a crime he admitted. But now, they want to charge him based on guesswork, on emotion, not on facts. The courtroom fell silent until the prosecutor stood and said, "Some crimes leave no body, but they leave ghosts in the lives of the people left behind." The jury deliberated for hours, and then the judge announced the case would not proceed to trial. There wasn't enough direct evidence. The charge wasn't dismissed, but it wasn't moving forward either. The case was placed on hold, filed under Danielle Stislicki, missing, presumed dead. Her family walked out of that courtroom feeling like they'd lost her all over again. And across America, people began asking a hard question. If the system can't bring justice to a woman who vanished in the middle of a city, then how many others are being forgotten too? After the trial was postponed, the media exploded. Danielle Stislicki's name was back on headlines across the country. No body, no verdict. One victim abandoned twice. And then, something unexpected happened. An independent investigation by Missing Justice, a nonprofit that specializes in cold cases, uncovered a new possibility. Danielle's phone may have been used to send a message after she disappeared. According to the report, a faint signal was detected from her phone at 6:44 p.m. on December 2nd, nearly 2 hours after she was last seen. But the location wasn't anywhere near her usual routes. It came from a roadside motel, 12 miles away from her office. Her family had never heard this detail. And when asked, police said the data wasn't precise enough to confirm whether it was a human interaction or just the phone passively updating. But that response only deepened public doubt. What else had been missed? An independent journalist began digging into Floyd Galloway's past and discovered that years earlier, he had been internally reprimanded for inappropriate contact with female employees at a previous job. But the incident was quietly settled. No criminal record, and it was never brought up in Danielle's case file. The silence was becoming deafening. Justice groups pushed for a full reinvestigation. Danielle's family was invited to speak at panels and forums, but they said only one thing. "We don't want pity. We want the truth." Then came another shock. An anonymous woman called the tip line. She claimed she had once slept with Floyd Galloway, unaware that he was married, and remembered him once saying, "Someone knows too much." Police couldn't verify the tip, but it stirred a deeper fear. Could someone else know what happened to Danielle and be staying silent out of fear? And then, an interview with Danielle's mother delivered a gut punch to the nation. When asked, "Do you still believe justice will come?" she looked directly into the camera, voice trembling, and said, "My daughter vanished, but what disappeared with her was my faith in this system." 1 year after the trial was halted, Danielle Stislicki's name faded from headlines. No updates, no arrests, no closure, just a cold case, and a family still holding up signs on the side of the highway. But once again, silence was broken. In March 2022, a retired investigator agreed to speak anonymously on a podcast. What he revealed sent shockwaves through the true crime community. "There's a surveillance tape that was never made public," he said. It came from a small gas station, about a mile from where Danielle's car was found. When asked why it wasn't used as evidence, he explained, "The footage wasn't clear enough to ID anyone, but it showed someone exiting the Jeep, walking away alone, and disappearing into the dark. No bag, no signs of panic, just walking, like they knew where they were going." So the question became, was that person Danielle? Was it Floyd? Or someone else? Someone we've never heard of? At the same time, an old tip from 2018, previously dismissed as unrelated, was re-examined. It was a call to the hotline, placed at 2 a.m., a man's trembling voice. He said only one sentence, "You're looking in the wrong place. She's not there." Then he hung up. The call was never traced. But after digging deeper, investigators realized it came from Livingston County, the same area where Danielle's phone had last pinged. And then came the final blow. A cold case from 2009 resurfaced. Another missing woman, also in Michigan, also worked in an office, and she too had once known Floyd Galloway, back when he worked as a security guard at a different building. Her body was never found. Her case was closed in 2012, unsolved, forgotten. And now the public had to ask, is this just one case, or part of something bigger and far more dangerous? Is this about one man, or a system that let people look away? Danielle's family refuses to embrace conspiracy theories. They still believe in justice. But what they can't do is wait another decade in silence. Because if the answers are out there, who's holding them? And who benefits from forgetting? It's been nearly 9 years since Danielle Stislicki disappeared. There was no funeral, no gravestone, no place for her family to lay flowers. Only a small stone bench in a local park, where her mother sits every Sunday morning, still hoping for a miracle. Floyd Galloway remains behind bars, but not for Danielle's case. He was never convicted of murder, and under the law, unless new evidence surfaces, he cannot be tried again for the same crime. The system hasn't absolved him, but it hasn't convicted him either. The truth lingers like a ghost, flickering in and out of reach, in the memories of those who lived through it. Every year, on December 2nd, Danielle's family holds a quiet vigil. No cameras, no press, just a small group of loved ones, lighting candles, and reading old letters Danielle once wrote to her mother. One letter, written when she was just 17, contained a single line: "I don't know who I'll become, but I want to be someone who makes others feel safe." And tragically, the girl who wanted others to feel safe had no one there to protect her when it mattered most. That's what makes Danielle's story more than just another missing persons case. It's a mirror, reflecting thousands of others, where victims are forgotten because there's no body, no headlines, no drama, nothing the media can spin. This story doesn't have an ending, only a question. Are we willing to believe that truth matters, even when it can't be captured by a camera or proven with a fingerprint? And if Danielle is still out there, in the woods, in someone's memory, or buried in the silence of those who know, how much longer until she finally comes home?